particular clothes, but most of the time, who has silk? People that have a lot of money in this, that, and the other. And or large religious groups for ceremonies and stuff use silk in their garments and what have you. All right, so regardless of whatever the material is, as far as moving, we see that there's a certain amount of trade. And what does trade do? Trade is what, if we will, makes the economy go. Okay. Now, what happens when that trade goes down the tube? Okay. Obviously, we're supposedly, and we are in a certain degree, a recession now. We know about the high unemployment. But we also realized from late 2007, when all this stuff started going downhill, you know, in a matter of just how long did it really take for everything to go down the toilet, as the old saying goes? Not very long. And things come to a standstill. And what happens when people don't buy? You can't sell them. But the interesting thing about it, did we see prices go down? You know, that was a strange coincidence. Usually if you can't sell something, you want to move it, you discount it. And there was some discounting, if you want to call it. But if you understand the markup of merchant quality and what have you, are you going to sell anything that you're going to lose money on? Unless you're using what they call a leader. And that's minor stuff. But for the most part, you're not going to sell nothing unless you're not going to recover what you spent. Okay? And you're always looking for a profit. So even when you see these big jewelry discount sales, 75% off, he's still making money on it. Don't kid yourself.
That shows what a markup they've got.
It's a huge markup. Okay? And even just the way the markup rules, if you understand with that, when you say it's a 30% markup, what in reality does it actually work out to as a percentage? It's about 52%. But if you understand CPA figuring and what have you, like markup and what have you, that's what it is. So you have to grasp that. It's all part of economics and what have you. All right, enough about that lesson material. But here's what's important, that we understand this and know the characteristics of what controls the world. And what I mean by the world is what mankind runs after, follows after, what have you. Now, because of our aspect of life and how we deal things, you know, it used to be where you could go and trade stuff. Say like Sister Helen raised corn, and she would go to Brother Don and give him X number of bushels of corn for some wheat. Okay? And you grew beans. We trade, do some bartering back and forth. Well, we don't do that anymore. Because it's just a necessity of it. It's so much more convenient to deal with cash or some medium of exchange. You go to the store or whatever and trade and do your thing. And it makes sense from a standpoint of carrying the stuff around. Because if you were trading the commodities, go over to Dennis's house, swap this out, take it over to here, and then the next thing you know, you're going to need an 18-wheeler truck to haul your stuff around that you're moving to do your swapping and selling and what have you. Okay. But on a wholesale global aspect, this is kind of what we see. There's huge amounts of things going. We don't realize just how much material goes. I mean, when you see the crop harvests in the United States for corn at 180 million bushels, you know, in a bushel, remember what a bushel basket is like? Corn. How much corn is it? You know what I mean? It's enormous quantities, and especially when they line up at any given time between 15,000 and 20,000 rail cars to load this stuff on or more. And if you've ever seen them haul coal out of Pennsylvania and some of those areas, even Wyoming, it's just train after train after train after 150 to 200 cars loaded with coal. And they're moving. They're moving. Okay, so it's a volumetric aspect. So here's what happens. If you want to control the economy, what do you got to do? You got to own it all. Are anyone here familiar with who Warren Buffett is? Okay, if you've read his life story, he started out as an investor. He bought this, sold this, bought and sold, bought and sold. What does he do now? He's still in it. You want to buy some of his A stock? One share is about $108,000 for one share of A Buffett stock. But what will that one share net you? A lot of buying power. Okay? For example, he just bought Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. Took controlling interest of it. It was selling at about $70 a share. He had a tender buyout offer of about I think it was $95 a share. Bought all the outstanding shares and whoever else wanted to sell. So he basically owns the stock. And usually when Warren Buffett speaks, people listen. That's the important thing. Your old E.F. Hutton, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. Remember that little quirk? Why is that? Because man knows how to make money. He knows what's going on. Now, let's apply that to the religious world. How is the Antichrist going to sell himself? Just pop up on the scene, hey, listen to me, I know everything. Is that the way it's going to work? Okay, but how is he going to be able to do that? People just don't walk in and take over. They've got to have some kind of a reputation.
He's going to have a way to get out of it. He's going to,
Okay, but the point of it is, he's going to have some reputation for people to kind of buy into what he's saying. He's
Start
gonna-
slow and build up.
Yeah, but he's going to have that reputation to deal with. Okay. Now, with that in mind, and we use the term Babylon here. Now let's begin reading in chapter 18, and we're going to go through there, and then we'll kind of see this develop when we grasp this concept of what's going on. And it says in verse 1, after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and then the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Okay? Now let's look at verse 3, and I think we get the whole aspect here. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now you look at that first strip. Drunk of the wine of the wrath. No, don't we always associate wrath with violence of some sort and what have you? Okay? But doesn't it carry over more than that? It's a matter of manipulation. It's a matter of what? Building strong nations and what have you. Controlling nations and what have you. But what do we see with this? Let's read further. Have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. How do people get rich? Because they're moving material. They create things that people want. Okay, now last week I mentioned the fact, and I'm sure some of you here have one of those new Apple phones, whatever they are doing. How many did they sell this last quarter? If you read the report, Apple made billions of dollars. And here's the interesting thing about it. Why did you need that phone? Exactly that statement I was looking for, because I wanted it. Did you need it? No. But look at this statement here. It says, waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Now, if you look at business from a standpoint or anything worldwide trade, now what you think about this from our standpoint? Are we materialistically minded? Big time, right? Some people have to have all the little fancy gadgets as soon as they hit the market. How many people lined up at 3 a.m. to be there when the store opens so they'd be the first in line to get that new phone?
They were lined up earlier than that.
Or earlier than that, but I mean, just the point of it. Get it. Well, what has the phone done to us?
they could take food and allow their kids to get it.
That's my point. We're we're a type of society where we have to have it, whether we need it or not. Now, I want you to look at something or think about something. And I may be exaggerating here, but I think close to 65% of goods and materials that are sold are things that we do not need.
Or we can't buy it now.
We get by without. I mean, the reason I know that firsthand is don't get a paycheck for 4 or 5 weeks and find out what you need, what you can do without. And it is amazing how much money we throw away. But who's getting rich on the money we throw away? But also look at the jobs, the economy and what have you, on the money we throw away is generated. Somebody's getting rich. The boys from Apple are getting extremely rich on a phone. You see what I'm pointing? I'm just using that as one example. So what are we looking at here?
You know, Brother Frank, that's what it's actually meaning here. It says, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of the fornication.
That's exactly my point. We're in bed with these guys. See, we're living the so-called high life. But the sad part about it is, and you kind of alluded to it there, and this is the sad part. Yesterday where I was working down in Stock and Recycling, this is down on Weber's, well not Weber's, well it's off Weber Street, but it's over on Lincoln Street by the Crosstown Freeway. St. Mary's Dining Hall for homeless and whatever is down there. There's tons of homeless people. You can set your watch. It's at 12 o'clock, they show up with a free handout, free meal, or whatever. Here's what really blows your mind. All of them have cell phones. I'm serious. They all have cell phones. And if they're so poor and homeless, where are they getting the money to buy the cell phone?
And then there's an installment every month or something.
Okay, but here's the best one. Then there's always around 45 or 50 cars that drive up. The guys hop out and go get the free burger or whatever it is. But they're not driving old clunker cars and what have you. They're driving Mercedes and Lexus. One guy even come in a Jaguar. Now, we're living the wrong life, friend. We need to get out, figure out how to do it. All right, enough said about that. But here's the point. We're living the delicacy and the what have you. Who's made rich? What's the prospering aspect? Okay, read on. And I heard another voice from heaven say, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not her plagues. How much influence are we today? Big time. How do you get influenced in anything that you're going to buy? Why do you think we advertise? Now you run a motel, right? Or the hotel? Motel. Do you advertise? Do you advertise at all? Okay. Does your what do you call it? Franchise chain? So they advertise a lot for it. So how do they promote you? Best place to sleep, or whatever it might be. Big rooms, comfortable, friendly people, etc., etc. So they what? They put out there for your aspect. And what's the big famous line that Motel 6 always has? They'll leave the light on for you. As if who cares? With the light on.
Bodette, what's that guy's name? Jim
Tom
Bodette?
Bodette.
Tom Bodette.
But you see, my point is you get the little slogan, but it's something to what? It's a catchphrase back in our mind. Okay? How's this one? Remember the old lady that used to go, where's the bee? Remember that? Did that work for advertising? Big time. Oh yeah. And we can go list on and on. Remember the Alka-Seltzer commercial where it showed the old guy with the jackhammer? I'm giving my age away now. Where he had his belly laying over the top, doing it for the headache. Remember that? Speedy Alka-Seltzer? That's before your time. Pardon? Oh, the Jellos, yeah. See? So they had the different little catches that get your attention or whatever. There's a reason for it, to sell you, they want you to buy it, they encourage you to buy it. Now, but spiritually, is it not the same way? How do churches appeal or different ones? See my point? What are you selling? There's a big difference between selling, if you will, I use that term loosely here, selling the truth of Jesus Christ and candy making. Sugarcoating it, I guess is the right word to use. You don't sugarcoat God's word.
That's what a lot of churches do nowadays.
Oh yeah.
Like, whatever you believe, it's okay, come in,
Right.
we'll all worship
The
together.
point of it is are they forgetting something that was written?